Have you ever wondered what it truly means to be used by the very people who claim to love you most? Not in a movie, not in a novel, but in real life, where the lines between love and control blur quietly behind closed doors. Where applause from the outside world only masks the silence, guilt, and emotional manipulation happening inside your own home. My name is Serena. You might recognize me from the Olympic podium, a moment the world celebrated as triumph. Gold around my neck, tears in my eyes. But what no one saw was the truth I carried home that night. The cold realization that in my family, my victories were never mine to keep. This story doesn't begin with heartbreak. It begins with sacrifice. With believing that success would finally earn me respect. That paying the bills, funding the home, covering the debts, those things would buy me love. But I was wrong. And the night they told me to leave, just after I'd kept their house warm for another winter, I understood something that changed everything. What do you do when the people you were trying to save are the very ones sinking you? This is a story of betrayal dressed as tradition, of quiet revenge, justice without violence, and the strength it takes to walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong. I didn't grow up in poverty, but I didn't grow up in peace either. Our home, nestled in the suburbs of northern New Jersey, looked like every other two-story brick house on the block. Neatly trimmed lawn, American flag on the porch, and a basketball hoop that never quite stood straight. But inside, the air was different. It was heavy. My father, Michael, was a former high school football coach who treated every conversation like a locker room speech and every disagreement like a personal betrayal. My mother, Karen, worked part-time as a church secretary, soft-spoken in public, but sharp behind closed doors. Then there was my little brother, LeBron, 17 years old, always watching, rarely speaking. He had our mother's quiet sadness and our father's simmering pride. By the time I was 22, I had already brought home more money than both of them had seen in years. Sponsorships, endorsements, competition winnings, it all came fast. After I won my first international medal. But I didn't just bring home gold. I brought stability. I paid the mortgage they were behind on. I kept the water running and the lights on. When the fridge broke down, I replaced it. When the heater died midwinter, I installed a new system. I even covered LeBron's school trips and tutoring sessions when no one else could. I did it not out of obligation, but out of love. I thought maybe if I gave enough, they'd finally see me as more than just a daughter with fast legs. But what I didn't realize then was that some families don't see generosity as love. They see it as leverage. And over time, their gratitude wore thin. My father began resenting how the neighbors spoke my name more than his. My mother started calling the money I sent family funds, as if I owed them a lifetime stipend just for being born. They smiled when the cameras came, but never once came to a meet. They cheered when I won, but questioned every decision I made off the track. And still, I stayed. Because despite the cracks, I believed they needed me. That if I just kept holding everything together, we'd be a real family again. But some foundations weren't built to last. And the truth was, I had been patching up something that never wanted to be whole in the first place. It was Christmas Eve when everything finally broke. I had just come home from a long day at a charity event in Manhattan, a quiet fundraiser for underfunded youth sports programs. The city lights still clung to my coat, the scent of winter air mixed with perfume and warm cocoa from the train ride back. I walked through the door carrying a small gift bag I'd picked up for LeBron, new. Track spikes I knew he'd been eyeing online. The house was dimly lit, and the fake tree we used every year stood in the corner like an afterthought, its pre-strung lights flickering weakly, as if unsure whether they had the strength to stay on. My mother was in the kitchen, pulling a tray of overcooked ham from the oven. My father sat at the head of the table, wine glass already half empty, flipping channels without sound. Dinner began without any kind of ceremony. There was no music, no prayer, no smiles. Just the dull scrape of silverware and an undercurrent of something thick in the air. Resentment, maybe. Or something colder. I passed the mashed potatoes to LeBron, who offered me a small, grateful smile, but his eyes kept flicking nervously toward our father. The silence was tight, stretched so thin that even breathing too loudly might shatter it. And then it happened. Michael, my father, dropped his fork and stared straight at me. "You think you're better than us, don't you?" I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "You strut around like you're some kind of hero because you bring in money, because you run fast and show up in commercials. But this house? This family? You're not the backbone. You're the burden." I froze. For a second, I thought it was a twisted joke, some kind of ugly attempt at holiday banter. But his face was stone. Karen looked down into her lap. LeBron had stopped mid-chew, eyes wide with disbelief. "You're serious?" I asked, my voice flat. "You want independence so badly? Then go get it. Pack your things. You're not needed here anymore." The room spun slightly. I wasn't even angry, not yet. I was stunned. Not because I couldn't survive on my own. I'd been capable of that for years. But because I had stayed. I had chosen them. Despite everything, I had chosen this house, this family. And they were choosing to throw me out like bad leftovers on the one night we were supposed to be together. My mother finally spoke, her voice low. "Maybe it's for the best, Serena. You've outgrown this place anyway." My chest tightened. "You mean this place I've been keeping from foreclosure? This place with heat and running water because I pay the bills?" "You're always keeping score," my father muttered, dismissive. "No," I said. "You just never bothered to remember the math." LeBron stood up. "This is insane. She's the reason we even have a house to eat dinner in. If she leaves, stay out of it," my father barked. "No," LeBron said, his voice cracking. "If she leaves, who's next?" Me? There was no answer. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just stood up, quietly placed my napkin on the table, and walked to the sink to rinse my half-eaten plate. I wasn't going to beg. They had made a choice. Now it was my turn. I paused in the hallway and looked back once, only at LeBron. He nodded slowly, like he understood, like he felt the same storm building behind his ribs that I did. Upstairs, I packed in silence. No one followed me. No one knocked. I moved like someone who had rehearsed this exit 1,000 times in her mind, but never believed she'd actually need it. Clothes, medals, documents, all tucked neatly into 2 suitcases. The house below remained eerily quiet, as though it, too, was holding its breath. But I wasn't. As I zipped the final bag shut, I felt a strange clarity settle over me. If they could discard me this easily, then they had never really seen me. Not as a daughter, not as a person. I was a paycheck. A trophy they could display until it stopped serving them. That night, I didn't just leave a house. I left a version of myself behind. The one who tried, who waited, who hoped that loyalty could earn love. And as I walked down the stairs for the last time, I didn't look back. Because the moment they told me to leave, I knew. I was never really welcome to begin with. The night air outside felt like a slap. Cold, sharp, but strangely cleansing. I stepped into it without a coat, dragging my 2 suitcases behind me like anchors I was finally willing to carry on my own. The driveway was empty. No one had followed. No voices called my name. Inside, they had gone back to their dinner, or the TV, or the wine. That silence confirmed everything I needed to know. I wasn't a part of them anymore. Maybe I never had been. I didn't go far. I checked into a hotel just 2 miles from the house, one of those extended stay places with a kitchenette and paper-thin walls, the kind of place people go when they're in between chapters. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. Instead, I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the blank television screen until my mind stopped racing. There was no plan yet. Only a strange sort of stillness, like the moment between lightning and thunder. Later that night, LeBron texted me. "Are you okay?" I stared at the screen for a long time before replying, "Not really, but I will be." He didn't ask for details. He didn't offer false hope, just responded with, "I hate them for this." I knew he didn't mean it the way it sounded. He still lived there. He still needed them. For food, for shelter, for the illusion of safety. But in that moment, I knew he understood what I was feeling in a way no one else could. I stared out the hotel window, watching traffic lights change for almost no cars. My breath fogged the glass. I thought about everything I had done for that house, not just financially, but emotionally. How I had bent myself in half to fit their image of a good daughter. How I had celebrated wins quietly, worried that, too much pride would make my father feel small. How I had downplayed my exhaustion so my mother wouldn't call me dramatic. And how I had given up opportunities to move across the country or train full-time overseas, because I thought they needed me. But now I realized the truth. They needed what I gave, not who I was. And that difference was everything. That night, I made a promise, not a vow of revenge, but of reclamation. I wasn't going to scream or storm into the house with accusations. I was going to do something better. I was going to remove every piece of myself from their lives. The money, the stability, the quiet support they had come to rely on as if it were owed. If I had been invisible while paying their bills, then they could learn what it meant to live without them. I reached for my laptop, the dull hum of its fan kicking into life. I wasn't ready to retaliate yet. But I was ready to remember who I was without them. And soon they'd remember too. Only this time, not as the girl who ran fast, but as the one who walked away. The next morning, I woke up in the hotel bed. With the kind of clarity that only comes after something has snapped clean, not broken, just finally released. My first instinct was still the same as it had always been. Check the bank app, the utilities, make sure everything was paid on time. But this time, I stopped. I stared at the login screen and let my hand hover over the keyboard. Then, slowly, I moved my cursor to the account settings instead. I began with the mortgage. Though the house was still under my father's name, the automatic payments came from my checking account, set up back when they were months behind and on the verge of losing the property. I canceled the scheduled transfers. It asked me, "Are you sure you want to stop this payment?" I clicked yes without hesitation. Then came the electric bill, the water, the gas, all registered under my name, all with my banking info attached. Each one I opened, reviewed, and cut off. Some would take effect immediately. Others would lapse in a few days. I didn't bother sending a warning. I moved on to the credit cards. One I had co-signed to help my mother cover groceries, another opened specifically for household repairs. I locked both accounts, disabled usage, and initiated closure requests. I had already paid them off. I owed them nothing. Even the Amazon Prime subscription, which my parents used every night to stream old sitcoms, was tied to my card. Canceled. Spotify Premium, same thing. Gone. By the time I finished, it was early afternoon. I hadn't eaten, hadn't showered, but I felt lighter. Lighter than I had in months, maybe years. I wasn't acting out of anger. I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I was simply drawing a line between what was mine and what had never been theirs to claim. That evening, I took one more step. I logged into the security settings for every major account, banking, email, cloud storage, and changed every password. I added two-factor authentication, removed all backup numbers except my own, and deleted every device that had logged in from that house. I wasn't just protecting my money. I was protecting my identity, my independence. There was no press release, No angry message sent their way. I didn't even tell LeBron. Some decisions don't need a headline, they just need to happen. I imagined my parents going about their day, flipping on light switches, opening apps, unaware that the ground beneath them was about to shift. They had kicked me out like I was a guest who overstayed her welcome. So I left like one. But I took the key, the warmth, and the silent lifelines they thought would never stop flowing. It wasn't revenge, it was clarity. For 4 years, I had supported a home that made me feel like an outsider. That ended now. If they wanted independence so badly, I was finally giving it to them. Fully, completely, and without a single word. The fallout didn't begin with an explosion. It began with confusion. Quiet, creeping, undeniable. Just 2 days after I severed every financial tie, the first message arrived. It was from my mother. "Serena, the Wi-Fi isn't working. Did something happen with the router?" I didn't reply. A few hours later, another message came. The lights flickered during dinner. "Please check the electric company account. Your father is getting irritated." Still, I said nothing. I imagined them sitting at the dinner table, waiting for the lights to steady, tapping their phones, refreshing screens, convinced it was some technical glitch. For a family so used to having everything handled without asking, the idea that I was no longer silently fixing things hadn't yet settled in. The next morning, LeBron texted, "Power's out, Dad's yelling, says the whole house is falling apart." That one stung. Not because I felt guilt, but because I knew LeBron was the only one truly affected. He was still a kid living in a house that now felt colder, darker, and more volatile by the hour. I wanted to go pick him up, drag him out of there, give him the peace I was just beginning to taste. But I also knew I couldn't save him yet. He had to decide when he was ready. Just like I did. By the third day, the messages turned desperate. My mother called 5 times before noon and then left a voicemail. "Serena, I don't understand what's going on. None of the bills are being paid. The TV won't turn on. Your father's furious. Please, just fix whatever mistake happened." I played it twice, not because I needed to hear her voice, but because I needed to be sure I wasn't imagining the tone. Panicked, confused, entitled, like I was a customer service agent whose absence disrupted their comfort. Then came my father's message, one I didn't expect so soon. He didn't bother with pretense. "You think you can just walk out and leave us in the dark? You think we'll let you treat us like this? Don't forget who raised you. Don't forget whose house you lived in." It was almost funny. The man who kicked me out was now demanding my return, not for me, but for what I provided. That evening, while I sat at the kitchen table of my temporary rental, sipping instant noodles in a quiet that finally felt earned, I received another update from LeBron. "Dad's trying to open your mail. Keeps asking Mom if she knows your online logins. Says he'll take what belongs to the family." I felt the muscles in my neck tighten. That wasn't just desperation. It was escalation. He wasn't just angry. He was looking for a way to reclaim control. By the end of the week, my bank sent me a fraud alert. 3 failed login attempts. A password reset request from an IP address tied to my childhood home. The name on the notification might as well have said, "Dad." I changed my passwords again. Added biometric verification. Called the bank and flagged the account. But what struck me most was how predictable it all was. He had always viewed what was mine as a family asset, and now that I had drawn a boundary, he saw it as theft. Meanwhile, the house sank deeper into dysfunction. The fridge broke again and stayed broken. The streaming services were gone, so the TV sat silent. My mother's voice, when she finally reached me again, sounded cracked. "We didn't think it would get this bad," she whispered in a voicemail. "Your father hasn't slept in days. He keeps talking about how you abandoned us. Please, just come home for one conversation." But there was nothing left to talk about. I had already said everything I needed to when I walked out that night in December. They hadn't listened then. They were only listening now because their comfort had evaporated. That weekend, LeBron texted me again. He's losing it. Screamed at Mom for using a candle in the kitchen. Accused her of stealing from him. I stayed in my room the whole time. I stared at the message for a long time. It was exactly what I had predicted, and the exact reason I had to stay away. I wasn't the storm. I had just stopped shielding them from it. They wanted independence. Now they had it. In full. I thought that after a few days of discomfort, they might adjust, figure out how to live without me, or at the very least, stop trying to drag me back into the dysfunction. But I had underestimated how tightly my father clung to control, and how entitled he felt to everything I had ever earned. The calls didn't stop. The tone just changed. By the 8th day, I received an alert from my primary email provider. Someone had attempted to reset my password 3 times. The IP address matched the same one flagged by my bank. Then came another notification, this time from a streaming service I barely used anymore, trying to log in from a new device. Again, my father's address. It was no longer confusion or desperation. It was invasion. He wasn't trying to reach me. He was trying to reclaim what he thought belonged to him. That night, I called LeBron. "Is Dad going through Mom's notebooks?" I asked. He hesitated, then whispered, "Yeah." I saw him with her old binder, the one where she writes down passwords. He's been trying to access everything. Bank accounts, Netflix, even your Apple ID, I think. My fingers tightened around the phone. "Thank you for telling me." He paused. "He said you owe him, that he built you." I almost laughed. Built me? The same man who refused to come to my Olympic trials. The same man who sat in silence when I walked across award stages, saying later, "Just don't let it get to your head." I hung up and opened my laptop. Over the next few hours, I rebuilt my digital life from the ground up. New passwords, each over 16 characters long, randomized strings of numbers and symbols. I removed all backup contacts except my own burner phone. I added 2-factor authentication to every financial, legal, and even social media account. Then I created a digital trail, a series of alerts that would ping my phone anytime there was unauthorized activity. No more trust, only walls. But digital defense wasn't enough anymore. That weekend, while I was grocery shopping with Marissa, my old teammate and temporary roommate, my phone rang from an unknown number. I ignored it at first. Then it rang again, and again. A sinking feeling set in. I answered on the 4th. "Ring!" "Serena!" My mother's voice came through, trembling. "He's outside your building. He's saying he's going to bring you home whether you like it or not." I froze. "He's at Marissa's?" "I don't know where that is. But he left the house furious. Said he figured out where you were through an old shipping label." I hung up and turned to Marissa. "We need to go, now." By the time we reached the apartment, he was already there, standing at the front door, pounding on it with his fists, yelling my name. Red-faced, wild-eyed. A neighbor was filming him from across the hallway. I motioned for Marissa to stay. Behind me, and I called the police. "Yes, he's my father," I told the dispatcher. "But he's threatening, unstable, and trying to force entry into my residence. He's not welcome here." The officers arrived within minutes. 2 of them calmly approached my father, speaking to him like he was a stranger causing a domestic disturbance, not someone whose name appeared on my birth certificate. He shouted, about betrayal, about what I owed him, about how he was just trying to talk. But they didn't care about the theatrics. They warned him once. When he tried to shove past them, they put him in cuffs. It wasn't until I saw the metal clasp around his wrists that I felt my legs shake, not from fear, but from release. I had protected him for so long, absorbed his rage, his disappointment, his control. Now someone else was handling it for me. The officers escorted him out of the building, and for the first time in years, I felt like a boundary had held firm. The next morning, I filed for a protective order. Not just for me, but for Marissa, too. I documented everything. The login attempts, the stalking, the theft of information, even the voicemail recordings. I compiled it all into a legal case file. My lawyer reviewed it and said it was solid. "This isn't just emotional abuse," she said. "This is harassment, identity fraud, and attempted financial theft." That was the word I hadn't let myself say until then. Fraud. My father wasn't just angry. He was trying to steal from me. And now that I'd cut off his access, he'd spiraled into panic. But I wasn't panicking anymore. I was documenting, protecting, defending. He had underestimated what happened when a daughter stopped shrinking and started fighting back. Not with fists, but with facts. Not with vengeance, but with justice. After filing the protective order, I thought things might quiet down. The arrest had made headlines in our local community. Former high school coach detained after domestic disturbance at daughter's apartment. But thankfully, most of the attention stayed offline. I didn't want pity. I didn't want anyone twisting the narrative. I just wanted peace. Then LeBron called me. It was a Tuesday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table with Marissa, half listening to her talk about her coaching schedule while scrolling through an email about brand partnership renewals. I almost didn't pick up, but something in my chest told me to answer. "Hey," I said softly. He didn't respond right away. I heard him exhale on the other end, like he was trying to steady himself. "There's something I need to tell you," he finally said. My stomach tightened. "What is it?" "It wasn't just that Dad snapped on Christmas Eve," he said. "He planned it." "What do you mean?" "He told Mom weeks before that you needed to be put in your place before you started forgetting who fed. You. He said you were getting too proud, that the money, the attention, it was changing you. He said if you didn't leave willingly, he'd force it. He even talked about having me replace you. Said I'd be the next star of the family. Didn't speak. I couldn't." "And Serena," LeBron continued, his voice lowering, "you remember that last Nike bonus you got in November? Yeah. They used it, without telling you." "What?" "He took the statement you printed out and used it to secure a private loan for the gym. The one he was trying to reopen in town. They told the bank you were backing it. Used your name on the preliminary contract. I only found out because Mom left the paperwork in the printer tray." It was like the floor disappeared under me. My own father had weaponized my success, my hard-earned sponsorships, my credibility, to chase his fading dreams, all while plotting to throw me out like excess baggage. "I'm so sorry," LeBron whispered. "You didn't do anything wrong," I said quickly, blinking against the burn rising behind my eyes. "I wanted to tell you earlier," he said, "but I didn't know how. I didn't want you to hate me for staying." I shook my head even though he couldn't see me. "You're surviving. That's not something to be ashamed of." There was a silence between us, not uncomfortable, just full of things we both understood without needing to say. We had grown up in the same house but lived entirely different truths. And now, for the first time, we were finally speaking the same language. "I've been saving," he said quietly. "From my part-time job and tutoring money. I want to leave when I graduate. I just need a little help." "I've already started something for you," I told him. "There's a separate account under your name. It's not much yet, but it'll be enough to get you started. First month's rent, groceries, books." He didn't answer right away. When he finally did, his voice cracked. "Thank you." It was in that moment I realized something. I hadn't just broken free for myself. I had been the proof LeBron needed that it was possible to escape, that love didn't have to come with a cost. We weren't just siblings now. We were allies, survivors of the same silent war. "I'll get out, Serena," he said. "I promise." "I know you will," I said. And when you do, I'll be there, waiting. In that promise, in that bond, something shifted. For the first time in years, I wasn't alone in this fight, and neither was he. I didn't think they could surprise me anymore. After the betrayal, the theft of my financial identity, the stalking, I believed I'd seen every shade of their desperation. But the universe has a cruel sense of humor when it comes to testing your boundaries. It was LeBron who noticed it first. He texted me on a rainy Thursday morning. "Your car's in front of the house." I frowned. That couldn't be right. I had parked it in Marissa's building garage and hadn't used it in over a week. I called him immediately. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I'm staring at it right now. Same dent on the rear bumper, same parking tag on the windshield." The call ended and I rushed to the garage. Empty. My car was gone. I stood there for a moment, soaked by the sudden realization more than the drizzle around me. Only one other person had ever driven it, my mother. She must have taken it, but how? I checked the drawer where I kept the spare key. Still there. That meant they had made a copy. They had planned this too. Without hesitation, I drove Marissa's car back to my old neighborhood. The street looked the same. Quiet. Still. Like it was hiding something. My car sat neatly in front of the house like it had never left. But inside, I could see the signs. A coffee cup in the holder, a new grocery bag in the passenger seat, and the driver's seat reclined in a way I never left it. Someone had been living in it. I knocked on the door. My mother opened it with a startled look, like she'd seen a ghost. "Why is my car here?" I asked calmly. She scoffed, stepping aside to let me in. "It was just sitting there. You weren't using it. That doesn't mean it's yours to take." "I needed to run errands," she said quickly. "It's not like I stole it." But she had. And she knew it. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I scanned the room and immediately noticed something else missing. "My laptop," I said, voice tightening. "Where is it?" She blinked. I sold it." My stomach turned. "You sold my laptop?" "We needed money. Your father's medication, the grocery bills. You stole my car, sold my property, and lied about it. That's not need. That's criminal." She straightened, her face hardening. "You left it all behind. That means it's not yours anymore." That was all I needed to hear. I stepped back, pulled out my phone, and said, "Then you'll deal with the consequences. I'm calling the police." Her voice rose in panic. "You're turning on your own mother?" I looked her in the eye, cold and steady. "No, I'm protecting what's mine, something you should have taught me." I filed the report that afternoon. Vehicle theft, sale of personal property without consent, and unlawful entry. I handed over GPS records, grocery receipts found in the car, and the tracker logs from my laptop's cloud account. They couldn't lie their way out of this. That day marked a new chapter, one where my boundaries weren't just spoken, they were enforced. I thought the police report would be the final straw. I thought, maybe naively, that once the law got involved, they'd back off. But people like my father don't know how to back off. They only know how to escalate. 3 days after I filed the theft report, I got another message from LeBron. This time, it was short, urgent, and chilling. He showed up at my school. I called him immediately. "Where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he whispered. He didn't get in. Security stopped him at the field. Said he was trying to watch practice, but he was pacing, yelling on the phone. It was weird. That was enough. I was done reacting. It was time to finish what I should have finished the moment they turned me into a villain in my own story. I called my attorney and scheduled a formal delivery of the restraining order paperwork. We'd already submitted the emergency petition after the incident at Marissa's, but this would be the final court-certified version, served with documentation, witness statements, and a copy of the police report from the stolen car and laptop. It was thick, heavy with evidence, and overdue. 2 days later, I drove to LeBron's school. I waited in the parking lot, scanning the track in the distance. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the pavement. I saw LeBron wave to me from across the field as practice ended, and I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. Not fear, not dread. Just clarity. I was exactly where I needed to be, and then I saw him. Michael, my father, walking toward the school fence with a heavy stride, his eyes locked on LeBron, his mouth already moving even though we were too far to hear the words. My body tensed. He hadn't seen me yet. I got out of the car, holding the manila envelope in my hand, and walked directly toward him. He noticed me too late. "Serena," he said, his voice low, warning. "What the hell are you doing here?" "What you should have done a long time ago," I replied. Taking responsibility, I handed him the envelope. "This is your copy. You're not allowed near me, Marissa, or LeBron. You violate this and you're going back in cuffs." His face contorted. Rage, disbelief, something ugly and familiar. "You think you can cut us off? After everything I gave you?" I didn't flinch. "You didn't give me anything. You tried to take everything I earned and twist it into something I owed you for. But it's over now. You're done." He stepped forward like he was going to make some point, maybe even raise his voice again. But this time, a security officer from the school was already approaching, radio in hand. "You need to leave, sir," the officer said firmly. "Now." My father turned toward him, huffing, fuming, but the weight of the envelope in his hand made him hesitate. He looked back at me, eyes burning. "You'll regret this." I stepped closer. "No, you will. Because the difference between us is that I don't need control to feel powerful. I just need peace." He stood there for another beat and then slowly turned away, walking back to his truck. The security officer followed him until he pulled out of the parking lot. LeBron came jogging up beside me. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm good." He looked down at the envelope still in my hand. "Was that it?" I smiled, a small, tired one. That was the last chapter. We got into my car and drove away from the school. Neither of us looked back. For once, there was no need. It's been over a year since that day outside the school. Life didn't magically fix itself, but it finally started moving in a direction that felt like mine. I moved to Colorado and took a position coaching a junior track team. Young athletes who remind me every day that strength doesn't have to come from pain. My apartment is small but filled with light. My mornings are quiet, and my name hasn't been spoken in anger in a very long time. That, to me, is wealth. LeBron turned 18 last month. True to his word, he walked out with a single backpack and didn't look back. He's now studying sports medicine at a community college on a partial scholarship, working evenings at a gym, and texting me every other day like clockwork. He says he finally sleeps through the night. As for my parents, I haven't heard from them. They tried to contest the restraining order once, but the court denied it. I don't check the address on file anymore. I don't need to. Some people think closure means conversation or reconciliation, but for me, it was silence. The kind that comes not from fear, but from freedom. That's the life I chose, and I have no regrets. Stories like Serena's are more common than we think. Behind closed doors, countless people are financially exploited, emotionally manipulated, and made to feel guilty for choosing independence over blind loyalty, especially when the abusers wear the mask of family. What makes this story powerful isn't just the betrayal, but the quiet courage it took to walk away without revenge, only boundaries, truth, and self-worth. This wasn't just about cutting off bills or blocking phone numbers. It was about breaking a cycle, about reclaiming an identity that was never theirs to own. And more importantly, It was about showing that justice doesn't always come in dramatic takedowns, but in firm decisions, protected peace, and a life rebuilt from nothing but dignity. So here's something to think about. Have you ever had to protect yourself from someone you loved? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your story might help someone else find their strength. And if this video moved you, helped you reflect, or made you see things differently, hit the like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, real-life stories that reveal the truth behind the silence. Your voice matters. Let's talk.